What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. And being that we are still kind of in the midst of a Seahawks bye week, still kind of in that period of time where there's not a lot to talk about because we didn't play a game yesterday, I want to explore some league wide things with a little bit of a Seahawks twist. Figure it's a good opportunity to do so. And in this video, we're going to ask a simple question. Are there any former Seahawks, by which I mean Seahawks from last year, that the Seahawks are missing? So I went around, took a look at the guys who were Seahawks in 2022 that are not Seahawks in 2023. They were free agents and we let them go. We released them. We decided not to bring them back. Whatever it may be, these are guys who were Seahawks last year and they are not Seahawks this year. Now, if you want to be quick with it, if you just want to be brief with it, the Seahawks through 4 games are playing fairly well. They look like a pretty good team through 4 games. So you can say we made the right decisions, generally speaking. But let's go a little bit deeper into it. Let's see individually how did we do on these decisions and kind of evaluate the front office's understanding of free agency last year. Because obviously we all know what's going on with the guys that we brought in. Guys that we brought in, Julian Love got off to a bad start, but now he's playing better. Draymond Jones has been fine. Jaron Reed has been amazing. Mario Edwards has been solid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what about the guys we let go? Sometimes you lose track of these guys because you're not watching them every week. So let's take a look at some guys here, and we're going to start with, I would say, the one guy you can make a really compelling argument is actually playing pretty well this year. It's Shelby Harris. He was released by the Seahawks, went to the Cleveland Browns. So far, he's played in all 4 games. He's playing pretty good for them. Half a sack, 10 tackles. Now, he's only playing about 40% of the snaps through 4 games, but he is part of an excellent Cleveland defense so far. Cleveland's defense has been lights out so far. And PFF thinks he's playing actually really well. They got him at a 68.5. They got his run defense really good. They got his pass rush is pretty decent. It's not great, but he's definitely still playing at an NFL caliber level, still grinding fairly well. I think this is the one guy who I look at and I go, we could use him in Seattle right now. There are a couple other guys playing well, and we'll get to them a little later. But this is the one guy who I look at and I go, we could use that guy right now. He would add to the depth on the defensive line, and we would be better off having him. All right, so let's keep bumping along here. Next guy we're going to look at here is Cody Barton. He went to the Washington Commanders, and I thought behind that defensive line in a 4-3 defense, Cody Barton would actually play pretty well because Cody Barton's a very flawed player, but I do think there are some strengths to him, and I thought that defensive line would make him look pretty good. I mean, you look at the game log, you look at the stats. He is averaging about 9 tackles a game, which is respectable. He's got a fumble recovery. He actually had a pretty prolific game against Denver back in week 2. He's playing a pretty healthy amount. So, yeah, he's actually played every snap so far this season for the Washington defense. So, there's that, but then, yeah. He is everything that Seahawks fans thought he was on his worst day, he's been in Washington. Disastrous against the run, not good in coverage, which honestly I always thought he was a decent in coverage here. Just not a good player at all so far this year. One of the least valuable players in the league. So even that defensive line, even that situation, even having Ron Rivera as his coach, it can't save him. So yeah, Cody Barton is not missed in the slightest. The numbers are there, the bulk numbers are there, but there's no reason to believe he's actually playing well for the Commanders. We dodged a bullet. Next up, we got Quinton Jefferson. He was a guy that we had on the last year of his deal last year. We decided to release him rather than let him play out the last year of his deal. He actually had a standout game in week 1, the game where Aaron Rodgers went down. He had a couple of sacks on Josh Allen and that heroic overtime effort to win that game with no Aaron Rodgers. So that's obviously boosted his numbers significantly. He's still, grinding out there, still playing respectably well. Nothing over the top. He's playing about half the snaps for the Jets defense that has been decent so far this year. Obviously, it's not been as great as anticipated, although not having Rodgers has a trickle-down effect, obviously, there. PFF thinks he's playing okay. Nothing great, nothing over the top. He's giving you a couple QB pressures a game. He's just kind of a guy in there. Respectable depth. If we had him, I'm sure we'd be getting some mileage out of him, but can't really say you miss him. He's probably not any better than Miles Adams at this point, or maybe not even better than what Brian Monet is going to be when he gets back. So that is Quinton Jefferson. Next up is Ryan Neal. This was a guy I was very, very upset about losing because we lost him over basically nothing. We were going to pay him very little money. Tampa Bay ended up paying him very little money. So this one hurt. This one hurt. Through 4 games for Tampa, he's putting up numbers. He's playing relatively respectably well through 4 games for a decent team. Now, there's nothing over the top splashy about it. He's got a couple of tackles for loss. He's playing about 75% of the snaps. For whatever it's worth, PFF is not impressed, and PFF has loved Ryan Neal in previous years. PFF damn near thought he was an all-pro last year. So the fact that PFF is not hot to trot on him is notable. That means maybe there's just something going on here that isn't that great. But I like Ryan Neal, and if he gets to the end of his 1-year deal without getting extended, and we have a need at safety this offseason, although we probably won't because of our contracts. Like if we decide to release Julian Love, I'd love to bring Ryan Neal back personally. I like him. But not doing anything over the top this year, so can't really say we miss him. Although Julian Love's not playing well either. You could argue that Neal would be better than Love, but we're going to find out about that in the near future here. Next guy would be Rashad Penny, and this is quickly becoming a little bit of a tragedy. He's played in 1 game. 3 carries, 9 yards, 1 catch, 5 yards. So he's got 14 yards from scrimmage through the first 5 games for the Eagles. And no real impact at all. He played, I think, let me check the numbers here. Yeah, 9 snaps in the 1 game that he did play against the Vikings. PFF, not that this means anything because he hasn't played very much at all, but PFF grades are whatever. Yeah, this is becoming a little bit of a tragedy here. I thought he was going to be great in Philly. I think he went to Philly because he thought he was going to get the ball a lot in that offense, but he's basically just sitting there waiting for people to get hurt. That's really all I can say about it. And supposedly he's lost his burst. He doesn't look good in practice or preseason. He just doesn't seem to have it anymore. Maybe that last injury just kind of was the straw that broke the camel's back. And it sucks, but can't say we're missing him. You definitely can't say we're missing Rashad Penny. Another running back that we lost last offseason was Travis Homer. He has not touched the ball once on offense since he got to Chicago. So he is not really a factor for that Bears offense that is terrible through 5 games here. And he's played 2 snaps on offense, so he's not even like blocking. He's basically a pure special teamer. He's got 73 special team snaps and 2 offensive snaps. So Travis Homer is basically a forgotten man. And there are some Bears running backs that are getting hurt, and he still isn't playing yet. So we'll see if he gets on the field eventually. PFF grade, I looked at his special teams grade because looking at his offensive grade is nothing because he hasn't played. 55.8, which is whatever, workable, I guess. Not really anything to get excited about. Not as good as he was most years here in Seattle on special teams. So, yeah, we're not missing this guy right now. And maybe by the end of the year, he'll actually get to play some on offense because these Bears running backs keep going down. But right now, not looking good. Next guy is Al Woods. This was a guy that a lot of Seahawks fans wanted to bring back throughout the offseason. And eventually he signed with the Jets, I think a little after the draft. There have been some splash plays. Like he had the sack in the first game. He was part of that Herculean effort to lift the Jets past Buffalo on Aaron Rodgers' surgery night. And then he also had a hit on Russell Wilson that created a safety in the game yesterday. So he's making some splash plays, but overall, Al Woods is not really a splash play guy. He's a grinder. And he's playing okay, I guess. There's nothing really overly special here. He was actually inactive for 1 game, so he's only played in 4 games so far for the Jets. He's playing about 37% of the snaps when he is in there, so definitely becoming very much a part-time player. PFF, not crazy about what they're seeing from him so far. Just a very, very underwhelming 56.6 grade. And PFF has generally been a big fan of Al Woods. They think Al Woods is a great player from previous years. So the fact that they're not high on him is meaningful. So can't really say we're missing Al Woods particularly. Maybe he'd take a little bit of the load off some of these other guys, but there's not much here. LJ Collier. LJ Collier actually played in the first game of the year against Washington. Played, I mean, he had a couple tackles, I guess, on a pretty decent defensive effort against Washington. And then he's been inactive ever since. So I guess Arizona quickly found out about LJ Collier. He's played 37 snaps in that first game, so more than half the game. And then they just shut him down. And PFF, they'll tell you exactly what they thought of his game against Washington. So maybe that's pretty explicable. So yeah, LJ Collier not missed. Final guy we're going to look at here is Puna Ford. He was a guy who signed after the draft as well after we let him walk in free agency. He is basically not playing. He's done nothing through the first 5 games for Buffalo. He's only been active for 2 games, and he's played a grand total of 23 snaps. He is a guy who is basically waiting for people to get hurt. Now, Buffalo's defense has been elite so far, one of the best defenses in the league, and it makes sense they would have better guys to play than Puna Ford, but yeah, this is not a good sign for him as well. PFF also not a big fan. 51.5 is not particularly good, and as far as they're concerned, he's basically the invisible man. So not really missing Puna Ford either. There's just no gas here, it looks like. So that's about it. I guess there's our long snapper from last year. I can't even remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sure he's doing well in Baltimore, but our long snapper's doing good, so it's not like we're hurting for not having him. So I'm going to call that good as well, and that's what I got. So overall, really, really good stuff on the Seahawks side. See you guys later. Go Hawks.